Hi, my name is Abby Bartalo, and today I will be discussing the economic situation in Ukraine. Just a little background before we get going. Ukraine was formerly a part of the Soviet Union, which was broken up in 1991. In 2014, Russia occupied the Crimea region of Ukraine, which is a peninsula that is attached on one end to Ukraine and on the other end to Russia. It is right south of Ukraine. So in 2014, Russia occupied the Crimea region and controlled pieces of eastern Ukraine, causing the economy to shrink. They did this by aiding the rebel causes there. So Ukraine is currently recovering from dependency on first the Soviet Union and then trade with Russia, and then along with this, the military conflict that is currently and has been happening with Russia. To begin our economic analysis, Ukraine is currently recovering from the conflict we just discussed. GDP growth went from a negative 9.8% in 2015 and has raised to 2.3% in 2016 and then slightly dropped to just 2% in 2017. However, this is nowhere near recovering to where it was before this conflict happened. Unemployment rate last year was at a negative 9.5%, ranking Ukraine 124th in the world. And inflation rate of consumer prices was at 13.9% in 2016. This slightly decreased in 2017 to 12.8%, but is nowhere near a healthy and stable rate. But this is also a very strong decrease from nearly 60% between 2010 and 2013, which was when the heart of this conflict was taking place. Recently, Ukraine signed and joined the Deep and Comprehensive Free Trade Agreement, and this was a bilateral agreement with the European Union. It has caused them to become Ukraine's largest trade partner rather than Russia. In September 2017, Ukraine also returned to the international debt markets, and this allowed them to potentially strengthen their currency after the inflation that has been taking place, and this was because of the bonds that they have released. Also in 2017, they prohibited trade with separatist territories. This primarily consisted of eastern Ukraine, where the rebel forces are currently occupying. So, government has played a huge role in the economic climate that we are seeing in Ukraine today. Ukraine, before the Soviet Union broke up, was the most critical economic piece of the former Soviet Union, and its output was over 4 times as large as the next largest territory in the Soviet Union. Like I said earlier, the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991, and the government attempted to immediately privatize the economy, and they loosened all controls in an attempt to stimulate growth, and this led to uncontrolled crashes. In 2005, more attempts were made. They eliminated most taxes and customs privileges, and this helped bring some of the black market into the main framework of the Ukrainian economy. The black market was a huge issue because under the command economy, people were finding alternative ways to find the goods and services that they needed to grow and to thrive that could not be found under governmental controls. Another piece of the government intervention in the economy is the Central Bank of Ukraine, which was created under its constitution, and it was made to create stability through regulation, and it works alongside the cabinet of ministers of Ukraine. However, as we can see, this has not taken as much of a prominent role in creating stability as they would have hoped. So there are some goals that Ukraine has shown to be trying to grow towards during this time, and this includes stability and transparency as it's still transitioning out of communism and establishing democracy. However, on the flip side of this coin, there are many key issues that Ukrainians are facing today. This includes continued corruption, the establishment of capital markets in the face of the former Soviet Union, trying to increase foreign investment into their unstable economy, and also continuing to develop the privatization of state-owned enterprises. Like I have listed, there are many issues feeding into the economic climate of Ukraine. The first is what is taking place in eastern Ukraine. Like I said, in 2014, Russia invaded the Crimean region and they claimed to annex it, and they also turned against the Ukrainian government by aiding rebels in eastern Ukraine. There have been an estimated 34,000 deaths up to this point, but many are thought to not have been reported yet. They did create the Minsk Agreement, which was a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. However, it is still not being followed today. High inflation has been an issue, as well as falling GDP, which has raised but is still not up to the standard that it was before. In the past, before the bilateral agreement with the European Union was signed, there was issues with trade because of this, as Russia was Ukraine's largest trade partner. Internal conflict with the rebel groups has also created an unstable political and economic situation, and there are many human rights violations outside of the government's control. This is a huge issue because people are not having basic needs of safety and security met, which takes away from growing the economy and creating more of a free market. Another current issue is developing democracy in the face of turning away from communism and Soviet Union and establishing an independent and democratic government. The government has been struggling in doing this. As I said, there is slow economic growth, and GDP has not returned to its growth pre-conflict. Actions have been taken to suppress freedom of expression and freedom of the press in recent history. However, the government has said that this is because of the rebel groups, an attempt to control and create a safer environment. There is also rule of law has been seen to deteriorate as the government has not taken full control of their judicial and court systems. Trade has been a big part in growing the economy. As of 2016, their primary trade partners on the import side were Russia, China, Germany, Belarus, Poland, and the United States. On the export side, it was Russia, Egypt, Poland, Turkey, Italy, India, and China. However, this is not the most recent data, and if there were newer studies, it would find that the European Union had replaced Russia as their primary trade partner. Ukraine's primary imports include energy, machinery, and equipment, and chemicals, and exports are ferrous and non-ferrous metals, fuel and petroleum products, and machinery and transport equipment. The GDP composition of exports is estimated at 47.9%, and imports are at a negative 47.4%. In 2017, Ukraine exported $36.85 billion and imported a $44.2 billion. This shows that there is a trade deficit. However, it is not as an extreme percentage as it could be. Ukraine also has trade agreements in place. The primary one is the Deep and Comprehensive Free Trade Agreement, which took place in 2017, which is the bilateral trade agreement with the European Union. The EU is now Ukraine's largest trade partner, which has replaced Russia. They also have said that they will no longer trade with separatist groups. This is their primary legislation creating trade. There are some causes of the economic situation in Ukraine today. The primary one is that it was previously a command economy under Soviet Union. Because of this, there are not governmental and economic structures in place to control the privatization of the Ukrainian economy and integration of the formerly privatized government-controlled economy with the black market. Because of this, legislation is attempting to create a union of these two sides of the economy, but has not yet been successful. Also, the military conflict and instability has not created a great internal environment for economic flourishing. If I were to go in today to Ukraine, there would be a few economic policies or points of discussion that I would recommend. The first would be military. Although it is not directly linked to economy, creating social stability would improve the economic situation. One major issue with the conflict in eastern Ukraine in terms of their economy was that many components of heavy industry, which comprised about 27.8% of the GDP in previous years, was heavily damaged. Because of this, building up the military, suppressing the rebel forces would allow this piece of the economy to grow and reemerge. Another issue is the black market. I would create legislation to continue to privatize the economy, lessen controls, which would allow the black market to emerge and integrate into the economy. A third issue is oligarchies. Because of the way the economy was set up under the Soviet Union, certain groups have large control over pieces of the economy, and creating lower barriers of entry would improve the economic situation across the boards. The last is to control inflation, which is still at around 12%, and this could be done through monetary policy, specifically through raising interest rates, which would encourage people to borrow less and save more. As far as economic development goes, if I was to come into Ukraine today with the capital needed to make major improvements, one project that I would be interested in doing to help grow the economy would be creating security measures that industries could utilize in the face of the rebel forces. Much of Ukraine's economy was industrial, and much of it had been disturbed by internal conflict. And security needs to be in place to allow these industries to rebuild, whether it is through cameras, creating secure buildings, security forces. These steps need to be in place to allow people to confidently return to their jobs and feel comfortable rebuilding these industries. So, with a large amount of capital, I would look to provide affordable security systems to allow these locations to safely operate. Another huge piece is advocating for the least advantaged. Because of the situation in Ukraine today, much political development is needed, and that can be done through advocacy, showing the conflict with both the rebels and the role Russia has placed in this, as well as advocating to strengthen European Union ties. This can be done also through having knowledge of trade and the flow of goods that is taking place in the region today, as well as educating on developing democracy and free markets. Thank you so much for listening and learning with me today as we discussed Ukraine.